And Reinaldo, congrats on Bob Marley, One Love. I really enjoyed the film. And I kind of wanted to get your reaction to just the success it has become because it did so well at the box office. We're seeing a real organic support around the film. So how has it kind of been just seeing, fans really respond positively to this work?
I mean that it's why we make movies, so that's super exciting and yeah, it's amazing. I'm not on any of the social channels, so I don't get the play by play, but I get the occasional text message from someone that's seen it and tell me that they've enjoyed the movie or they loved it or they saw it with friends. So that's been great, and I think the studio is really happy with the box office success, and the family is really happy with the film, and collectively, it's just an amazing feeling to have something that people are responding to. It's inherent in the title. One Love is something that we wanted to share, and feels like it's been received exactly as planned in that way. So that's a blessing in disguise for sure.
That's wonderful. And one thing that I really liked about the film was the authentic use of Patois throughout. And you didn't do the subtitles, and I was curious about that but I think I understand it because even when people couldn't really understand some of the words, I feel like through the acting, you still got the emotion of every scene. So could you kind of just speak to the approach there of going authentic with it and not using subtitles? Because everybody I've spoken to, like they weren't even bothered by it or anything. Even if they missed some stuff, they still got the meaning of every scene.
1,000%. And I think as a filmmaker, and actually beyond the directing, as a writer or co-writer on the film, I'm always trying to, if I stripped all the dialogue out of the film, could people understand it? And that's emotion. That's Charlie Chaplin. That's going back to the days of early cinema. And that's dialogue's only gotten in the way, so many of the time. So we're always trying to just do less, do more with less. And that's just going back to film school, going back to the roots. Okay, we knew we had the challenge of language in this film. What you don't want to do is confuse people. And I think that's tricky when someone's leaning in, trying to understand it and getting confused by that. So it's a fine line between confusion and sort of flavor. And we danced that line for a good long while into the edit, actually. So much so that we certainly had to pull back in some areas that caused confusion because of the language, and then areas that it was cool and added to the flavor and to the authenticity of it. And so I think the mental math that I had going into the film was, if you understand as a viewer every third word, you totally get it. You don't question it. If you understand every fourth word, you're confused. And so that's the line we had to toe. And it was, yeah, we were dangerously in the 4 and 5 area for a long time. And but I would much rather embrace that, because that's totally closer to the reality than going into the 1 to 2 area. So yeah, we dialed it in post. We had, fortunately, the opportunity to go back and get some stuff. ADR is our friend, and we used every tool in at our disposal to dial the language in a place that we felt did justice to Bob, his family, the music, Kingsley's performance. Outside of Kingsley, everyone else is Jamaican. I mean, LaShawn is Jamaican. I mean, maybe I think Tosin Cole's not Jamaican. Obviously, James Norton's not Jamaican. But outside of that, it's an entirely Jamaican crew. So for them, it was easier because they're able to articulate their patois a little cleaner if need be. It's like my mother's Puerto Rican. Like, I could not understand her if I don't, like, she doesn't, if she doesn't want me to understand, she could speak like a whole different kind of Spanish. And then there's the Spanish I'm supposed to understand. So I think it's interesting in patois. There's levels to it, and so to answer
Yeah.
your question, it was a it was a team effort to dial in the language which you heard, but we certainly leaned into the authenticity of it, because I don't think Bob would have had it any other way.
Yeah, I think you found a really great balance there. And I was curious just about post because On the digital release in the 4K, there's 8 deleted and extended scenes. How was it kind of finding, the film and the editing process? Because I imagine it's very difficult to cut scenes when you have performances on this level.
Well, it's interesting. Like eight sounds like a lot, and it is, but when you delete like one part of a story, it's like Jenga, that it just kind of none of the other pieces work, no matter how great they are. And you'll notice in those eight scenes, they're pretty much storylines. And so once one part of the storyline left, it's really hard to keep the other ones. And so yeah, we had to kill our darlings, so to speak, which is always it's always hard. But it didn't feel like it didn't feel like we didn't know what the movie wanted to be. It's the movie we were making couldn't absorb all of those storylines. And so it made it easier and cleaner just to lose it all and see if the movie worked without them. And ultimately, it's like if you're cooking, you don't need that ingredient for it to be good. Yeah, I like Tabasco sauce on my eggs, but like you don't need it. And I think ultimately it's like that. Like, yes, we had things that tasted really good for a subset of the population. But we were making a global film and everything had to work for that. And ultimately, those were the decisions that went into leaving some things on the cutting room floor. And fortunately for us, we have home TV entertainment. So people can go and watch those deleted scenes and see the choices we made and go get another version of the movie and learn more about Bob.
Yeah, I can't wait to rewatch it and check out those scenes. And one of the reasons I'm excited to rewatch it is because it's kind of like sprinkled in here and there, but there's some really cool symbolism with the burning fields, the shooter in the crowd, and the horse. How can you talk about just your approach to, because for the most part, this is a very, realist take on a biopic. So how is it kind of sprinkling in the symbolism throughout the film?
That was the most exciting for me because it felt like a blank canvas. When you're doing a biopic, you're trying to stay as truthful to the facts as you can. You're trying to, find the common denominators in all the stories. But a vision is a vision. And so it really was free in the sense that it could be whatever it wanted to be. And, once there was sort of the idea of young Bob sort of running from the sins of his past, so to speak. He was running from something in his life. We come to know what that is the man on the horse, or who the man on the horse is. But once we established that that was the language, then it was finding how to connect that to the music in the film. How does it not feel like an addendum to the movie, but part of the movie, part of what he's struggling with? And then that symbolism became really woven into the fabric of the film. And, that was the most freeing part for me as a filmmaker, to really feel like we could capture this lyricism, this poetic nature of Bob, this unpredictable nature of Bob, this when you see him dancing and it feels like you could never repeat that. It's not choreographed. He's literally like in a trance. And how do you create some feeling of that, this spirituality, and wrap it around something that felt grounded, like a young boy and an absentee father, and probably which caused the biggest pain and void in his life, and the thing that he was running from. And so, yeah, to answer your question, I think that those visions were really probably the most fun for me as a filmmaker to make. It was also Robert Elswit shooting Fire. He won for There Will Be Blood. So, it was like I get to have Robert Elswit, I get to shoot Fire. I get, it was fun, it was exciting. It's visually stunning, and it has this metaphor and this poetic nature to it that really, I think, adds a depth and a layer to the film that otherwise, maybe wouldn't have that.
Yeah, it's a really cool addition and shows how inspired this film is. And One thing I've seen with your past couple films is you just get such remarkable performances out of your leads, and these are, already great actors, and we're seeing them just give incredible performances. Joe Bell blew me away, and Will Smith obviously it was incredible, and King Richard and Kingsley here is just it's such a showcase for his ability. Can you speak to just the collaborative process of really getting the best out of your actors? And obviously they're so talented, but just something special happens with these films.
Yeah, well, thank you for that, and it means a lot. I mean, that's hopefully one of my skill sets and strengths as a filmmaker, and even from film school, I was trying to establish myself as an actor's director, and I wasn't an actor per se in the sense that I went after it, but I acted in a couple of short films, and maybe I could have chosen that path. I didn't choose it, but I could have. And I really love acting. I love actors, and I hope they feel that when they meet me. I have a sensitivity to them. There's an understanding that they feel naked. They're lonely and scared, and it's scary out there. And I think there's a lot of assumption that, oh, just get in front of the camera and say the lines and you're pretty, like there's an assumption about what an actor does and what they have to go through to really dive into it. And it's really complicated. And I couldn't do it. There's no way I could do what Kingsley did in that film. I couldn't even come close, but I can certainly coach that. And I think part of it is understanding the limitations and when they happen, or trying to anticipate them, and being a support system for your actors. And for me, I find it's like it's building culture. And that culture is not just one film. Like you said, it's several films. I'm coming into this now, this is my fourth feature film. I'm coming into it having established the notion that I work really well with actors. So actors understand that. And by virtue of Will Smith winning an Oscar, there's also a pedigree that comes with that too. So a player that's playing for Bill Belichick knows that they're playing for Bill Belichick. Like there's not like a conversation like, "Hi, I'm Bill." And it's just like come into this world and you know that the level is here. And I'm sure the same of any great filmmaker that's establishing themselves. There's just an understanding that there's a culture here of working hard. There's a culture here of love, and you're coming into something that's going to feel very supported. So it's hard to explain culture in the sense that a you're providing your athletes or your actors with a space to be successful. So if you feel that you can get the most out of your players, and that's how I feel. I feel like I can get the most out of what they're willing to give me. And even those that aren't willing to give, it's like, how do I still get it? And it's a little bit of like Jedi mind tricks sometimes, and crazy stuff that we have to do, and things that maybe they don't even understand. Sometimes I have to give another actor a note to get a performance out of the other actor. Sometimes it's giving it to your offensive coordinator so that they can tell him. Sometimes it comes from so many different ways, and it's literally, what are the chips you have on the table? Who are the players you have? Fortunately for us, it's picking great players, and 95% of it, if not more, is casting. And that casting process is so important, getting the right players, because you don't have Kingsley Ben-Adir, you don't have somebody that can even come close to it. It's like you'd be making a mockery of Bob and his legacy. Kingsley was willing to do the work, but not only was he willing, he was able. He was able. So it's like he had the skill, and then he had the willingness to tap into that skill. I can't do that. I'm not Tom Brady. I can't go and throw the pass. He can, but I can say, I can have Tom believe in himself that he can go down any field with 2 minutes left and still win the Super Bowl. And like, that's my job. And it's a hard job to explain, other than preparedness, your willingness to go to the distance with them. Look, I'm on these films typically a year before the actors come on and a year after. So, they can do 10 movies in the time that I make one. So it's a different ball game for me than it is for them. But it's no less important. You know, they play a significant and a very important role in my process. I couldn't do it without them. That's why I have the most utmost respect for what they're able to achieve. I tip my cap because it is really the most daunting thing in the world, and especially playing Bob Marley, that's nuts. So you have to be a little like you have to be a little out there to try to even come close. And you know, tip my cap to Kingsley. He did a magnificent job.
That he did, and congrats again on this film. And thank you so much for the time today. I really enjoyed it, and I'm so glad it's a hit. It deserves to be. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you.